We can't let this happen to the cities. New York was up 348%, the crime wave. So the governor has to do something about it. And if the governor's not going to do something about it, we'll do something about it.
All right, President Trump in the Oval Office yesterday speaking about the rise in crime in New York City that we've seen recently, calling on Governor Andrew Cuomo, as he said, to do something about it. Former governor of New York, George Pataki, is our guest now. It's good to see you again, Governor. Thank you for coming on. What about the federal government getting involved in New York? What are your thoughts?
When it comes to crime, I draw a distinction between what's happening in Portland, where I think the president is absolutely right in saying we're not going to let anarchists destroy a federal courthouse, break in, burn it down, and disrupt our entire judicial system. We're going to have federal officials protect that. To sending federal officials into New York City to deal with street crime. That is the job of the city. That is the job of the state. They are failing miserably. But the solution is better leadership, not federal intervention.
All right, what needs to change then locally?
Well, first of all, people have to stand up for the police. The New York Police Department is the best in the world. There are tens of thousands of men and women professionally trained, risking their lives, who we should all be patting on the back instead of kicking in the groin. It's just despicable that not one politician, not the governor, not the mayor, not the city council, stands up and says, let's support our police officers. They're the best in the world. And you have to change the laws. I mean, they put in place laws now that tell our police officers you can be assaulted, you can have people, felons, resist arrest, and you're liable to go to jail before the felon does. It's just a backward system. We need to change the laws, we need to change the leadership, and we need to have public officials stand up and say, we support our police.
Let me talk to you more broadly, Governor, if I can, about the state of New York, not just the crime wave in New York City, but as you know, President Trump has been subjected to plenty of criticism for how his administration has handled the coronavirus. I mentioned earlier how he doesn't poll well on his response to that. Governor Cuomo, it seems, has been able to, shield himself in many ways from similar criticisms. However, as you know, there are issues that have come up. The handling of the nursing home situation, not the least among them, where the health department in New York required nursing homes to accept coronavirus patients. So looking in on it from the outside now, but as a former governor, what's your rating? How do you think Governor Cuomo has handled the pandemic?
Well, Connell, let's take a look at the numbers. How many people in New York have died from the virus? How many people in New York have had the virus? It is the largest by far state with numbers of fatalities in the country. How many nursing home residents died? And that did not have to happen. We had a backward policy requiring nursing homes to take COVID-positive patients that existed for over a month and a half before it was finally changed. And that condemned our most vulnerable, weakest senior citizens to death in those nursing homes. There's just a report today about how there were emergency hospitals set up, the Billie Jean King Center at the tennis center in Queens, that they spent $62 million to have ready to go with doctors and nurses and equipment for COVID-positive patients. And they got something like 80 patients sent over the entire crisis. Well, the healthcare system was overwhelmed and the emergency rooms overwhelmed with virus-infected people that the hospitals couldn't handle. When you look back, they're going to look at this, and we're going to have to learn a lot, and a lot from, sadly, the mistakes that New York made in dealing with this crisis.
That sounds like the most critical, correct me if I'm wrong, that you've been of Governor Cuomo. I know you have a long, history for people who don't know with the Cuomo family. You defeated his father, Mario Cuomo, to become governor, but you haven't been, until recently, as publicly critical of Andrew Cuomo. Why this issue? What is it about it?
Connell, I'm an American and I'm a New Yorker, and I root for the president to succeed, whether it's Obama or Trump. I root for the governor of New York to succeed, whether it's myself or now Andrew Cuomo. But there comes a point when you see things going in the wrong direction so strongly that you feel obligated to speak out. And I felt that obligation during the nursing home crisis and the COVID crisis in New York. And I feel that obligation now because of the rising crime that isn't just going to cost people's lives and result in a massive decline in quality of life in New York City. It's also going to economically devastate a city that is already reeling from the virus, from the shutdowns, from the ability to work at a distance instead of having to go to the urban centers. The restaurants are shut down, the theaters, the concerts. Broadway is dark. And now we have this soaring crime. I feel obligated not to go after a particular politician, but to say that New York is headed in the wrong direction. There are better solutions. We need to implement them now.
All right. George Pataki, thank you, sir, the former governor of New York State, joining us today.